Ringwood Lake. I loved coming to Ringwood Lake when I was a kid. Used to go fishing over the other side there. And even when we grew up, when we had kids, we used to bring the kids to the playground here. It's a fantastic playground. You'd still see lots and lots of mothers groups there gathering together with the kids. Just terrific. I love it. So easy to find too. You just come down the highway and there it is on the right. So easy to find. Nothing like trying to find Lake Victoria. So as a kid growing up, all the kids in our church used to head off to what they called CSSM missions every Christmas. And CSSM stood for Children's Special Service Mission. In fact, if you went there a number of years, it finished up being called Come Single Soon Married, because a lot of people found their marriage partners as a result of going to those camps. Now, I never went to those camps, but what I did like to do was to hitchhike to them, not to actually be part of them, but to hitchhike to them and visit a number of people who were on those camps from our church. And this particular year, it must have been around 1974, 75, and I had been to one or two of those camps, and I finished up at Portland. I hitchhiked all the way down there, and it's miles and miles away. It's near the South Australian border. And when I got there, and I'd spent some time there during the day, I looked at my map because the next thing was meant to be Lake Victoria. And I looked all over my map and eventually found it just over the border in New South Wales. Anyway, so I got started, I started hitchhiking, and this guy pulls over and he says, "Mate, where are you going?" And I said, "Look, I'm heading up to Lake Victoria just over the border in New South Wales." And he said, "Oh, you're in luck, I'm sort of heading up that way tonight to deliver some crates of fish." He said, "But I'm not going till 5 o'clock, so if you come back at 5 to this factory over here, I'll take you up there." And I went, "Ripper." So at 5 o'clock I came back, but I didn't see what I was expecting to see. What I saw was this guy up against a wall and two police putting handcuffs on him. And I went across to the cops and said, "What's going on?" And they said, "Who are you?" I said, "I'm John." I said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "This guy was going to take me up to Lake Victoria. He said he was taking crates of fish up there." And they said, "Don't leave town." And the guy with the handcuffs is looking around at me as if I'm part of his scheme or something or other. That really bothered me actually. So I took off. And that particular night, they were the worst set of rides I've ever had since I've been hitchhiking. Just a little ride here, a little ride there, and some really not that nice people as well. That night, I finished up in this park, and all that there was one of those war memorials. You know, we got the slab of concrete and the little tower thing and all the names written on there of the people who died during the war. And in the morning I woke up and I started hitchhiking again, same thing, terrible rides, and I eventually finished up on a dirt road and I had no idea where I was. After a little while, this car appears, and it's these two women who've been selling maternity dresses in Broken Hill, and they had got lost, just like me. And so I got in their car, and for the next 2 or 3 hours, we were going through properties. I was getting out of the car and opening all the fences up, and then they would drive. And eventually we got to this place called Rufus River, which is right on Lake Victoria. And I thanked them, and then they headed off trying to find Renmark in South Australia. That's how lost they were. So I went across to this house. It was one of those weather stations. And so I knocked on the door and this guy opens the door and he said, "What can I do for you?" I said, "Oh, I'm John, I'm looking for the camp here." He goes, "What camp?" I said, "Oh, CSSM camp." He goes, "There's no camps around here, mate." And I looked around and all there was like kangaroos and emus. It was incredibly remote. And I said, "Are you sure there's no camp?" And he said, "Well, if there was going to be one, it'd only be in one spot. So jump in the car, I'll take you down there." So we drive for about half an hour down this track and eventually we get to this beach on the lake and there's nobody there. And he said, "Mate, there's no camps here. Have you got the right Lake Victoria?" I said, "Is there another one?" He goes, "Well, not in New South Wales. There's one in Victoria." I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, down the Gippsland Lakes of Victoria." I said, "You're kidding me?" He said, "No." I said, "Oh." I'd come 300 kilometres out of my way to the wrong Lake Victoria.
Missed it by that much.
And I said, "How do I get out of here?" And he said, "You actually can't." Oh, he said, "Oh, actually you can, because the postie comes in on Wednesdays and it's Wednesday tomorrow." So I slept at this guy's house that night and the postie came in the morning about 10 o'clock and he took me out and I eventually got back to Melbourne. For the next 10 to 20 years, the big joke every Christmas was, "Hey, Ramo, going on holidays this year? How about Lake Victoria?"